Hello, thank you for viewing our presentation on cardiovascular disease and exercise. So what is cardiovascular disease? Cardiovascular disease is actually a class of diseases, and not just one disease alone. CVDs usually take place in the heart and the blood vessels of the brain. There are varying types of cardiovascular disease, and therefore there's varying symptoms and causes. One of the most common symptoms or causes of CVDs is atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the buildup of plaque that is created from cholesterol and fat in the blood vessels. When this plaque is built up in the blood vessels, it causes irregularities in blood flow that can cause a blood clot in the artery, which can eventually lead to a burst. If the blood vessel bursts, this is what causes the heart attack or the stroke, depending on where it is. As well, there are the types of CVDs that are triggered by atherosclerosis are ischemic heart disease, heart attack, stroke, hypertension, and peripheral vascular disease. CVDs can also be triggered by other circumstances, such as birth defects or genetics. CVDs triggered by these other circumstances are congenital heart disease, rheumatic heart disease, cardiomyopathies, and cardiac arrhythmias.
Canadian statistics. Heart disease and cancer are the two leading causes of death in Canada, accounting for 50% of all Canadian deaths. Cardiovascular disease alone accounts for 30% of deaths worldwide. In Canada, 20% of deaths are from heart disease and about 6% come from stroke, totaling close to 27% of Canadian deaths are from CVD. Ischemic heart disease is the most common form of heart disease, and heart disease affects 1.3 million Canadians. As you can see in this graph here, it displays the difference in deaths between heart disease and stroke, and you can see heart disease is a much higher portion of the population, but you can also see there's a very definite decline in deaths caused by CVD because of technology and awareness about the causes of this disease, and we know that exercise can play a major portion in preventing it.
Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines. Adults aged 18 to 64 should aim to get 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity per week done in 3 to 5 days. Resistance training activities using major muscle groups should be done at least twice a week. The more physical activity you get, the greater the health benefits. Prescription for aerobic exercise. Light to moderate intensity. Begin with 10 minutes a day and improve to 20 to 40 minutes per day. Begin with 20 to 30% of your heart rate reserve, increasing eventually to 40 to 60% of your heart rate reserve. High intensity will not be appropriate for most clients with CVD. Please monitor heart rate closely. Prescription for resistance exercise. Light to moderate training intensity. 30 to 60% of your 1 rep max, eventually progressing to 60 to 80%. Monitor closely for technique as well as breathing. 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. Low impact activities are most suitable for these types of clients.
So now we're going to move on to the benefits of exercise. So the first benefit of exercise is more active individuals tend to develop less heart disease than people who don't exercise. If CVD does develop in active people, it occurs at an older age and is way less severe. It helps with weight reduction. It also helps reduce blood pressure. It reduces bad cholesterol and raises good cholesterol. It increases exercise tolerance, which is always good with people with CVD. It also increases insulin sensitivity. You utilize oxygen more efficiently, and you're less fatigued. So now we're going to move on to precautions during exercise. So you must stay within your guidelines that your doctor has recommended, and you should always be aware of what you should be avoiding. If you have any fatigue, you should stop exercise immediately. If you have any shortness of breath, you should also stop immediately. If you feel any chest pressure or pain in your chest, neck, arm, jaw, or shoulders, stop exercising and call 911. Take long, deep breaths while you work out. Choose low weights and weights that are appropriate. And work through each movement very slowly and concise until you get comfortable.
Warm-ups. So with warm-ups, we're looking to slowly get the body ready for activity. With clients with CVD, we really want to focus on low-impact exercises. We want to aim for 3 to 5 minutes here, making sure we're doing dynamic multi-joint movements, getting the entire body, all of the major muscle groups ready for exercise in order to prevent injury. We want to also make sure that we're moving in different planes of motion. You don't want to fatigue here either. You want to make sure that you are saving some of your energy, so try not to use all of your energy during warm-ups. This is about 60 to 70% intensity. So some of the warm-ups that we chose for clients with CVD, again being low-impact exercises, are heel walks, speed walking from line to line, arm circles, inchworm, Frankenstein walks, walking twist lunges, high knees, or as a regression you could do stepping knees, power jacks, and karaoke, also known as the grapevine.
So when setting up for aerobic exercise, make sure you go over with the client focusing on safety. So if you're using a treadmill, ensure to teach them to step on the sides using the hand railing, placing the safety clip on the bottom of their shirt so it doesn't get tangled, starting the belt to a slow speed, having them step on safely before increasing speed to the allowed amount as you discuss with their physician. And then when exiting the machine, make sure they use the hand railings and step off the belt and then stop the machine. So always make sure to go over safety with aerobic exercise because you'll be using different types of equipment, and make sure to consistently monitor the client's heart rate. As we can see here in this video, first you should be demonstrating proper getting on the treadmill, placing the clip and stepping on the belt nice and slowly before beginning your exercise. Make sure the client understands all your instruction and then supervise them as the client is getting on the treadmill. Here you can see I'm passing the client the clip and she's placing it on the bottom of her shirt before stepping on the treadmill. Then we'll increase the incline and make sure they have proper walking technique. Ensure their knees are over their ankles and in line with their hips the entire time to prevent injury. And always check in with the client to make sure that their heart rate is okay. There's so many variations of aerobic exercise that you can choose from. You can alternate to keep it interesting with steps or a stair climber, stationary bike, or even an elliptical. And you can always go outside if the weather permits. For resistance exercise, there's several precautions to ensure. Make sure you're watching your client for any pain and make sure that you're giving them time to recover from the previous exercise. Get a drink of water. Make sure to instruct them on proper breathing technique. That they go through the full range of motion for the muscles, that you provide the correct amount of resistance and you always stabilize. Never overstress the muscles and aim for a weight that can be managed for 8 to 12 reps.
The demonstrative resistance exercises we have chosen are low row, body weight squats, calf raises, a bench press, and tricep dips. We chose these exercises based on the fact that they are a full body workout for anybody with CVD.
Low row setup and safety. Setup. Stand in front of the cable machine with your feet shoulder width apart and knees slightly bent. Please grab the appropriate attachment. Pull the bar towards your torso while keeping your chest forward. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Pause, then return to the start position. Safety. Appropriate weight from your physician. Breathe. Slow and controlled movements. As you can see in the video here, I'm doing a low row with one of my clients. You can see that the client is using the appropriate attachment. She also happens to be using the appropriate weight and does not have to struggle in order to lift it. As you can see, her feet are approximately shoulder width apart and her knees are directly underneath her hips. This provides her with a solid base of support. You can also see that she is pinching her shoulders back, as well as leading the movement with her elbows. She is not pulling with her neck, and is making sure to keep her chest straight forward. She also happens to be doing slow and controlled movements, making sure to control the weight. Low row progressions and regressions. Progression. One-arm rows, single-legged rows, as well as wide bar rows are more challenging on the human body. Regressions. Neutral grip rows, rows with resistance bands, as well as rows with dowels are good exercises in order to teach someone how to do a low row.
So our next exercise will be the bodyweight squat. So for the setup of a bodyweight squat, you start with putting your feet hip width apart. It can be between hips width apart and shoulders width apart. So your next step would be to slightly bend your knees. After that, you slightly push your hips back, and then you slowly lower your butt as if you're going to sit in a chair. Now, as you're lowering your butt, you keep your shoulders back and your head up, which we like to call proud chest. So now go to the lowest and most comfortable level and slowly stand back up. Before you stand back up, make sure you hold the squat for a minute and then come back up. And then you repeat the movement. So for some safety steps, you keep your weight in the middle of your foot. You keep your hips back. And if you are new to squats, you practice with a chair. So as you can see here, I'm demonstrating to my client how to do a squat, and now he joins in. His knees are slightly bent. You can place your hands anywhere during this movement. Most preferably, people choose in front of them. So we do a couple reps. Here's it from the back view. As you can see, before my client starts, his hips slowly hinge backwards, and then we squat together. From the side view, as you can see, my client is perfectly straight throughout the whole thing. His knees never pass his foot. He has proper form. So next, we're going to talk about the progressions and regressions of a bodyweight squat. So if you'd like to make the movement harder or make a progression, you can do a one-leg squat. You can do deep squats. You can do some wall squats. You can do pistol squats. You can do a barbell front or back squat. And you can do a goblet squat on a Bosu ball. All of these are all great progressions, and they really increase the intensity. But once again, make sure that you're cleared by your physician and your doctor before doing any of the more complicated movements. And some regressions will be half squats, so you don't go through the full range of motion. You do only a little bit of the motion. Or you can do chair squats, which is doing the exact same movement and squatting into a chair and then coming back up.
So the next exercise we're going to be discussing is calf raises, specifically the calf raise setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to place an elevated surface in front of you, whether that be a textbook, a stack of papers. We could also work with a set of stairs if you have it for an at-home exercise, giving at least 10 inches of elevation. So we're going to stand with our feet pointed forward, hip distance apart, heels hanging off the edge, and flexing the core muscles to stabilize your body. We're going to fully plantar flex the foot, then dorsiflex the foot till it's parallel on the floor. So a little safety for our nice calf raises here. Just to avoid some injuries, we're going to make sure that we're on a balanced surface, so nothing that's a little wobbly. Making sure that we are close to a wall or at least another person just in case of loss of balance. We're going to make sure our heels do not surpass a parallel position on the surface. This exercise is specifically appropriate for anybody with CVD because it is low intensity and it recruits only local muscles in the calves, as well as keeps the client's heart rate lowered so we don't have any problems with their CVD. So some progressions as well as modifications for calf raises. We can start off with modifications, our first being assisted calf raise, which is just using an object beside you. So again, being a wall or an individual, just to place your hand on lightly, just in case. A seated calf raise, which is usually the machines that you see at the gym, that you can just have a slightly bent knee to the position, as well as just working through your foot and pushing against that weight. A one-legged calf raise is all simply as it explains, one-legged on one leg, and just continuing through the calf raise. If you're just beginning that, please use something stable. A progression would be a weighted calf raise, so just some nice weights, whatever you want to use, barbell, dumbbells, you choose. A rocking standing calf raise. Start off on your heels and roll through your foot and go to a nice calf raise there, and then roll back down. You can do that weighted or not. And a metatarsal calf raise for a progression would be just slightly, instead of being on the ball of your foot there, we're going to move it back a little farther, so it's just your toes on the surface, adding a little bit more weight to your body, as well as making sure your core is a little more stabilized, and so it's just a little harder to balance.
The next exercise we will be talking about is the tricep dip. To begin, we will talk about the tricep dip setup. Set up a chair with ample enough space for the legs to be fully extended. Then place your hands on the edge of the chair with your elbows pointed backwards and without letting them flare. Then retract the scapula in the back and depress the shoulders. Ensure the chair is stable and that it doesn't move before beginning the exercise, as this can cause problems. This exercise can be done at home or in a gym, depending on the equipment. To ensure safety during the tricep dip, please follow these safety guidelines. The chair must be stable. Keep your elbows from flaring, as said previously. Again, keep your scapula retracted and shoulders depressed, and do not exceed 90 degrees of flexion at the elbow, or stop when the upper part of the arm is parallel to the floor. As you can see in this video, the client and myself are doing the tricep dip. Notice the arms are as far in as possible without any flaring, and the trunk of the body does not touch the floor. It stops almost immediately before it touches. In this portion of the video, I am helping the client to make sure that his elbows do not flare, and to ensure that his scapula is retracted throughout the full exercise to ensure safety of the client and prevent any sort of injury. To progress the exercise, in the case that the client can perform more, the client can perform the exercise on parallel dip bars at the gym. They can add a weight to themselves with a chain or a plate between the legs, or they can elevate the legs while doing the chair dip to create more depth with the tricep. To regress the exercise, in the case that the client cannot perform the exercise, a box or footstool may be placed under the buttocks to ensure safety and to ensure the client does not pass the safe range of motion. Another regression that can be used is light resistance bands can be placed around either side of the elbows to ensure that the elbows do not flare outwards to prevent injury in the elbow. Lastly, bending the knees to a 45-degree angle will create a new pivot point for the body so that to prevent further injury if the client cannot exceed the normal range of motion.
Bench press setup and safety. So you want to begin by ensuring the area around the bench is clear. If you're using a barbell, when putting the weights on the bar, you want to make sure that you use a clip or lock to secure them in place. You don't want plates falling off. If using dumbbells, you want to make sure to have them securely in hand prior to sitting or lying down, or if that's actually too much for you to handle, you can have somebody pass them to you once you're in that safe position, sitting or lying down. You want to make sure to have full body engagement as well. So when you lie down, you don't want to just sag down on the bench and let your body go loose. You want to make sure to be engaged from head to toe. Ensure your feet are flat against the floor, You want to make sure you have a spotter present if necessary. I recommend always having a spotter. And you want to make sure that you're keeping your core engaged and do not over pressure the spine. So again, just making sure to have that full body engagement. So here you can see me instructing the client to make sure that they keep the bar in line with their mid-chest. So they want to keep the bar just right across the middle of the chest there to ensure they're putting pressure on the right muscles, not overstraining. So here I'm demonstrating for the client, doing 2 repetitions, and here you can see the client safely lifting the bar as I assist him. And now I'm standing behind him, spotting the exercise. He's got his feet flat against the floor. He's making sure to do slow, controlled repetitions. He's making sure to inhale as he lowers the weight and exhale as he raises the weight. So through his concentric contractions, he's going to exhale. And as you can see here, the client is shifting his feet and his legs to make sure that he is flat against the ground and engaging head to toe, using his whole body for the exercise. Bench press progressions and regressions. So some progressions are wide grip bench press, pause bench press, so making sure to focus on that isometric contractions, dumbbell bench press as well, so you can make sure to focus on the independent muscles in both sides of the body as opposed to using a solid bar. Regressions would be push-ups, just focusing on body weight and gravity kind of as the resistance for that exercise and not having external weight. Again, we've also got the inverted row and plank.
So now we're going to finally move on to the cool downs. So a cool down is basically something you do, an exercise you do, and you hold between 15 and 30 seconds so that your muscles are all nice and cooled down, and that it helps so you don't feel pain. Well, you will feel pain, but it won't be as bad because you stretch the muscle out completely. So some of our cool downs for CBD is tricep stretch, hurdler stretch, a cross body stretch, child's pose, corpse pose, ankle rolls, neck rolls, shoulder circles, chair pose, and hip stretch. So you can put all these cool downs together. There's lots of cool downs, but basically it slows down your heart rate a little bit so it's not super high.
Contraindications. Being a client with CBD, reasons to cease exercise include chest pain, symptoms that feel similar to earlier myocardial ischemia, if they've experienced that, dizziness and lightheadedness, excessive heavy breathing and or sweating, feelings of nauseousness, or leg aches that impede function.